You're listening to a Whales Are Whales production.
You're also listening to Whales.
Visit whalesorwhales.com for more projects and shows like this one.
We have saved you a seat. Welcome to Train Station at 8, a video game music podcast. This is episode 43, and it is about the opening song from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. The reason is, that game got a re-release or something like that, right, Steven?
Yeah, that's what I hear. Well, at least I hope it did, because I'm staring at a Nintendo 3DS cartridge right down here. That's for Majora's Mask 3D. That is inserted into my Majora's Mask 3D new 3DS.
All right, that was incredibly really and succinctly... Cameron, you're being rude. Yeah, you have not been introduced yet.
I think you forgot the show rules.
Yeah, exactly. I am your host, Bryan, and joining me today is a guest. Who is this guest, Steven? I am not sure I've ever met him before.
Well, I think
he obviously has no etiquette, though, I say as I cut you off.
That's exceptionally true, but I don't blame you for forgetting who he is, because he is Cameron Nutter, an age-old friend of Whales Are Whales, but someone who hasn't been on a show in a while. Hello, Hi. Cameron, you can talk now.
Hi, guys. The reason I interrupted was because Steven has been shoving it in my face that he was able to get a limited edition something of Majora's Mask, and I was not. So... I'm a little sour about that. So
well, okay, so I was a little confused on this point because this is obviously what's most relevant to our listeners. Right. But at some point you Skyped me that you were like third in line at your GameStop to pick up the special edition. Like, what happened to that? They didn't have it?
It was actually mean. They called me and they said, sorry, we're not getting any of the limited edition copies. And I was like, oh, that's super. Thanks, guys. But they called me about 2 days before the release and said, well, they left a message. I was at work, and they said, Cameron, we have your copy of Majora's Mask ready to go. Come pick it up today. And I'm like, really?
It's a trap!
I got there, just the regular edition.
Yeah.
Aww.
So that's a bummer.
It was the one time ever that I've wanted a collector's edition, and I did not get it, so I'm very upset.
Oh, those pranksters.
I know, right?
Just like the Skull Kid himself.
Exactly.
They're just in character.
Yes.
Well, you listeners probably don't remember Cameron from Disembodied Voices, because I'm not sure if any of our
I don't think anyone listened to that podcast.
I don't think so, but he used it for episode after episode. That's one of our favorite old jokes.
The thing is, we can't make that joke about Train Station anymore because people actually do listen to this podcast.
Yeah,
wait. You guys didn't tell me there was actually going to be an audience. I'm
sorry,
now.
Cameron. All right. Yes.
Yeah. I think there are more than two of them. Is that a problem?
Well, I mean, your parents don't count, guys.
Well, there's at least one then.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good then.
But yes, for our old video game podcast, Cameron and Zach, our pal Zach, we're on that every week, more or less, with us, but we don't get to talk to them quite as much now that we don't have
not since the restraining order.
Yeah, that and the Disembodied Voices was canceled.
Oh, right.
Those were the two
things are kind of
those were the two main reasons.
Yep. If anyone is interested in checking out more of our stupid conversations with Cameron, though, you can see Disembodied Voices at whalesorwhales.com.
Yep,
it's
an archive there.
Retired projects
We have
page.
Quite a lot of backlog. It might take you at least a decade to listen to all of it.
And then we have the amazing audio drama that closes out our entire podcast that took me like 12 hours to edit or something. So
it was worth it.
Yep. So check that out, everyone. It's
worth every
great.
Second.
But speaking of checking things out that are great, Steven, what have you been listening to recently?
Well, I think that you'll all be excited to hear that I have compiled all of the vocal tracks from all of my Sonic the Hedgehog albums and put it into a single playlist.
Steven, I'm excited to hear that you've compiled all of the Sonic vocal tracks and put them into a single playlist.
Well, I can't say all of the ones that are available. For example, I don't own all the Shadow the Hedgehog vocal tracks, or all the Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 vocal tracks.
Steven, I'm no longer excited.
Are those the only ones you wanted to hear about?
I say go all the way or not at all, man.
Hey, I have plans.
Can we sing covers?
Nope.
I already did that. Wasn't great.
Even
That's actually true.
Out of the songs I do own, and I'm talking, this is every Sonic song.
Steven, I like I like to think that Cameron just imagines this is what you talk about every week is like all you've been listening to.
Well, I
finally comes on
when
the
I think
show.
of Steven, I just think of him sitting at his desk, covered in Sonic paraphernalia, and just like on a loop. What's that stupid song I used to sing? Running around at the speed of
Escape
light
from the
or
City.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
at the speed of love was what you like to say,
yes.
which was an incredible lyric.
Running around at the speed of love, gotta run on my rainbow.
But anyway, Stephen, so
I
you got
have
a playlist.
3 versions of that song, actually. 3
Oh,
separate
because
versions.
there really needed to be 2 more than just one.
And they're all so wonderful.
Yep.
And if there are 86 songs in total, and it's 5 hours straight of Sonic singing music.
Oh.
And I've just been playing that in the
Most
car.
of it is really good, right?
A lot of it is awesome. A lot of it is lame and awesome as well.
Okay. So this is like the opposite of that recent thing where they released, which is, the Sonic vocal tracks without the vocals. You didn't include those, right?
No.
Okay.
No, but I mean, this is stuff all the way from Sonic R to the rap from Sonic and the Secret Rings to the Crush 40, covers of, like, Sonic Riders songs, and it just has everything in it, so.
Cool.
That's kind of
I need
all
to
I've
import
been
this.
listening to, though.
That's a little sad.
I mean,
Cameron, what have you been listening to?
Other than just shuffling my big giant playlist. Yeah, that's all it's been specific.
Gotcha. Cameron, what have you been listening to, if anything?
I'm afraid I'm not that exciting either because sorry, I didn't mean to insult you, Steven. Because I listen to very similar music that I listen to probably
I thought you said similar to Stephen.
No, Lord, no. I listen to the same things mostly. I'm very picky when it comes to music. So looking at my iTunes playlist, Mindless Self-Indulgence, the Bastion soundtrack. Why did I listen to that for a specific reason? Something
it's
came out
really
that reminded
good?
me of it. Well, yeah, but there was a specific reason I went back to it, and I can't remember what it was. But something was like played, and I was like, "This sounds like Bastion," and I just listened to the whole soundtrack because why not?
Yeah.
Let's see, System of a Down. Oh, some Power Man 5000. That was kind of interesting.
Wait,
weird.
what is
They're
Power Man
weird.
5000?
They're weird. Did you ever play that snowboarding game on the PS2? Wasn't SSX. It was an EA
Klonoa
big
2?
one.
Klonoa 2.
No, but they did that song Bombshell. It was
I
in
don't
that
think
game.
I played this.
Okay. Well, that was the one song that I've known from them, and I downloaded their other 2
Gotcha.
albums, and they're just weird.
Okay.
And then
So you've been listening to System of a Down, and Power Man 5000 is the weird one out of these two?
yeah, actually, yeah, because
Oh my gosh.
at least System of a Down sings. Power Man 5000's version of singing is talking like this. So
Are they robots?
well, kinda, yeah.
Oh, that sounds weird.
It's very weird, yes. And then I talked to you a little bit, Brian, about how I've actually come to one of my favorite bands. I've come to actually disrespect recently. And that's Zachary, our other Disembodied Voices podcast friend, is going to be upset with me because he's a big fan of them too. Their newest album, Dog Fashion Disco. Excuse me, I didn't actually say the name. Dog
Right.
Fashion Disco. Their newest album was very soulless, and I picked that up the first time I listened to it. And then a couple days ago, I went and watched some of their live videos of them after they had released the new album that I thought was soulless, and they just didn't give a crap. They were just kind of on stage, just kind of going through the motions. The singer was not really singing. He was just kind of talking like this, and then on their screaming parts, and he was just singing the screaming parts because he didn't feel like singing. It made me really lose some respect for him. I don't know if it was just because they're just tired and the album was just something that they just had to release because they needed money, but unfortunately, I lost a lot of respect for them, so that was kind of a bummer.
That is
Yeah, I mean,
unfortunate.
Unfortunately, when you hear Dog Fashion Disco is the name of a band, you expect anything but boring.
Right, well, the thing is, their new album is soulless, but it's still entertaining music.
Okay.
And their old albums are freaking fantastic and ridiculous, more so than System even, like you mentioned. But yeah, I just was really unimpressed with their attitude towards their fans. These fans are, their lifeline, and they're just treating them like garbage, basically, up on stage, not really giving them a performance that they paid for. So, I don't know. I lost some respect for them, so that was kind of a bummer. I probably will still listen to their music, though.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah. So, like, how would you describe their music? In 3 words.
In 3 words?
And don't say Dog Fashion Disco.
Well, that would have been perfect, actually. Insane. No. Makes no sense. Perfect. There we go. Makes no sense.
Okay.
All right. You seem to like, I know from talking to you about music a lot in the past, Cameron, you really like stuff that is unconventional. Like, conventional music quickly bores you. Especially if it's like a ballad.
Yeah, there's a specific, songs need to have a hook for me.
Yeah.
And I've grown tired of the traditional hooks, I guess. So, bands like Fair to Midland and, Billy Talent and, I don't know, like, Dream Theater or System of a Down, they all have just that one weird quirk that I just really latch onto and I love. And you're right, there's a lot of bands that I just can't listen to because I find them too boring, I guess. It's just my weird taste in music, I suppose.
Other interesting, Cameron, musical fact is you love falsetto.
I do love falsetto, and I specifically like it when male singers can hit those really crazy high notes, which is why I like Journey so much.
Yeah.
And Avenged Sevenfold, which I actually haven't mentioned once, even though for some reason I haven't mentioned them. They're my favorite band. That guy can hit those high notes, and it's awesome. It's not that impressive when a woman hits those high notes, unless they're really crazy high notes, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I totally get what you mean. And yes, I love falsetto as well. So, yeah. What have I been listening to? That's a great question, Bryan. Well, let's see.
Hey, Bryan.
Yeah.
What have you been listening to?
Steven, I was on a great flow here. I feel like this is a bad segment for this week because I've like been listening to nothing either.
Yeah.
I went through my iTunes history and I've been listening to nothing. It's weird. Like, I'm listening to the radio a little bit in the car just because I have very short rides. It's not worth like pulling out my playlist.
Mm-hmm. That's my problem too. My work is 5 minutes away, so it's not even worth pulling out the iPhone.
Right, exactly. And I haven't had a lot of like work to do and stuff that I could play music during, so not a lot of music for me. I've been listening to the most recent Marcato Brothers or Super Marcato Brothers episode they released about new versus old video game music.
Yeah.
And that's been really interesting for people who have not heard this yet. Well, Super Marcato Brothers, which you might know if you listen to our show, is another video game music podcast that is amazing and better than ours, so go listen to it. And we've had them on the show many times before. They're great. Mm-hmm. And so they did an episode about taking old video game music and new video game music and comparing it. So they might take like an old Castlevania song and then a new Castlevania song and talk about how like the orchestration and the composition of video game music has changed over the years.
So for example, like Castlevania 2 versus Symphony of the Night?
No, not Symphony of the Night. The newest ones.
Oh.
What are they called?
I can't imagine that the newest ones are any good.
No, the music was amazing, but it was more like, you know, it was like modern film score, you know, it's very orchestral, slow-paced, not super melodic. And it's just, you know, it's largely a discussion about how games have moved from that melodic pop sound to the much more, you know, film soundtrack kind of sound, but also discussing like exceptions that are in there.
And there was a certain point where they're like, but there is some video game music in the current day that is really going for that poppy, listenable, classic sound. And I'm like, they're going to play Mighty Switch Force from Jake Kaufman. I know they're going to play Mighty Switch Force from Jake Kaufman, and that's exactly what happened.
I could have seen Shovel Knight go in that position as well.
And that is, same composer, Jake Kaufman.
Oh, is it?
Shovel?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Wow,
so
Cameron, that guy is the king of making old video game music today.
I agree. Absolutely.
He keeps the spirit alive completely. So yeah, I've been loving that episode. And the other stuff I've been listening to is basically just the music of games I've been playing. Obviously the Hearthstone soundtrack, but I mean, it's not like I've been listening to it more than I have for the past years. It's still playing and I love it. I've just been playing Hearthstone. And then secondly, I've been playing Dragon Age Inquisition finally.
Oh, darn it. I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I probably can't go super in depth about it right now, but I'm sure we'll talk about it later, Cameron. In short, it's absolutely fantastic. I love this game so much. I feel like I barely scratched the surface of it, but I've played it for several nights now.
That's really awesome. That's really awesome. Because I know you didn't like Dragon Age 2, but you went back to it and you started... We can't talk about this. What are we doing? Stop it.
It'll go too long.
Old habits.
I love the Dragon Age series so much. And we can talk... Yeah, you're right. We can talk about this very soon. In a podcast setting even. Back to Dragon Age, to the music. So, my big problem with Dragon Age as a series is the music's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Dragon Age Origins had a great theme song, and then pretty lackluster music through the rest of it. Dragon Age 2 just had bad music.
Skyrim?
No.
No.
Well,
Don't you dare bring that up,
Skyrim
Cameron.
had a great intro, and then everything else sucked, right?
You know I disagree. We argued so much about this, Cameron.
I don't remember.
Yeah, you were arguing for the Bastion soundtrack. I was arguing for the Skyrim soundtrack. It's one of my favorite game soundtracks.
I was being very close-minded, and I would be willing to discuss it again at a future date.
All right, so yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. I think Skyrim has a great soundtrack, but not as good as Morrowind's. But anyway, back to Dragon Age. So Dragon Age 2 just had bad music, which Steven pointed out to me. I didn't really notice it.
You're like, I didn't remember the music being bad, and so I forced you to come over and sit in my office chair and put on the headphones and listen to how bad the music was.
To be fair, it wasn't as bad as you were saying, but it was pretty bad.
It's not as bad as the basement theme from RE1, right?
Well, no.
But that loops around, it's so bad it's good.
Exactly.
I actually got to that part in Resident Evil Remastered, and I was so relieved to hear they didn't use that song. Not that I expected they would, but they didn't, so good.
Yeah. That would have been, I would have liked a full orchestrated,
that would be so
rendition
wonderful.
of it. I need to make an orchestrated version of that. Anyway, that's another tangent. Man, Cameron, there's so many tangents.
I haven't
supposed
talked to you
go
guys
off
in so long.
Yeah, it's actually no worries. This is like the segment of our show about tangents. So, yeah, Dragon Age, the music isn't super prominent yet, but it is very, very good what I have heard.
Have there been any moments? Have there been any moments where you like enter a city or like stop to listen to it? Because
there was a moment that I stopped to listen to it. I can't remember where it was. The title screen has an excellent song, which is basically the theme song of the game. Mm-hmm. It's really, really good. It actually sounds, and I can't quite decide if it sounds enough like this that it bothers me, but the melody sounds a lot like the song that Pippin sings in Return of the King.
Ooh, that's a good song.
The Darkest Edge of the Night or whatever it's called.
That's a really good song.
Yeah, that's
very
beautiful.
Similar melody. I don't think, it's not like the same melody, but it evokes a very similar kind of
Are we talking about
loss.
like a single vocalist, or is it instrumental?
It's not a vocalist. It's instrumental. But just the melody of it reminded me of something.
A lot of minor notes that mix well with the major notes. Yeah, okay, I know. That's really
cool. It's like, it's a beautiful song, but there's definitely like a sadness to it. And it's a very similar melody. So yeah, the theme song is really great. Part of the reason the music isn't too prominent yet is that a lot of it relies less on music and more on the ambient sounds of the environment. The sound design in this game is exceptional. So a lot of the time you're exploring around, like it does not play music consistently. It's more like World of Warcraft or something in that sense. So,
if you've ever listened to, the Skyrim Atmospheres track that comes with the album though, you will quickly learn that sound design and music design is very closely linked.
I'm really, really excited to listening to the music outside the context of the game because the music is not drawing attention to itself. And I don't know if that's a bad thing or not yet, but when I have listened to it, it is much better than I remember Dragon Age music being. The only thing disappointing me about it so far is like the main hub world. Every BioWare game has like the place you go back to, like in Ezio Republic, it's the Ebon Hawk or whatnot. Mm-hmm. It more just has, because you're like leading this Inquisition, it's basically just kind of these militaristic kind of drums that provide kind of like just a backing soundscape. Mm-hmm. And I kind of miss having, that melody there. That like, the original Dragon Age had.
But
on the other hand,
really cool like techno track from the first Mass Effect that would play on your ship.
But on the other hand, this is such a large area and you spend so much time there that I don't think they could have a consistent melody like in the original Dragon Age without it just starting to get old.
I mean, games like Skyrim do a pretty good job with having town overworld themes that don't grate or anything on your nerves. So I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, they fade out in Skyrim. So I think they could have put some melody in here that just comes in and out, but they kind of just the route they went is they kind of just have this kind of, it's really good. It's like this just drum track that goes in the background that is infused almost with a little bit of electronic-y elements, which is interesting. But I would like kind of the theme song to play there or something. And maybe it does, but I don't recall it, yet. But yeah. It's kind of just initial impressions. Again, I'm very early in the game and I haven't spent all my time trying to listen to the music, but I'm excited to keep playing through it and then to go back through the soundtrack and see what I missed, and see what the music is like outside of the context of the game.
Just out of curiosity, what console are you playing it on?
PC.
Okay, so the reason I asked that was actually related to music. Cause if you were playing it on console, you'd have your big TV speakers, but if you're playing on your PC, you're using your headphones. So do you think that changes your listening to the music at all?
If anything, it makes me more in tune for the music because I have a really, I have a really high quality headset that is amazing for playing music. So yeah, that's one thing I do appreciate. And I'm going to try listening out for the music even more as I continue to play it. But yeah, the weird thing is I'm playing on PC, but I'm using a controller because the controller.
Whoa, wait, you're using a controller?
Oh yeah. This game is like designed ground up to be played with a controller.
Yeah,
it's really awkward to play with the mouse and keyboard.
Since Dragon Age 2, they really were tailing it towards consoles anyways, so.
Yeah, interestingly, Dragon Age 2 didn't let you play with a controller, and I kind of feel it would have been better if they did in some ways, but it wasn't quite there. But this game, like, yes, it just plays so much better with a controller than with mouse and keyboard.
You know, that does make sense. You were telling me it's kind of like an action adventure.
Yeah, I mean, you basically play it like an action RPG and sometimes zoom it out.
Because I didn't like the first two because it wasn't an action RPG, so.
Yeah, you can totally play this as an action RPG, and it actually is really punchy and feels good. It's pretty simple, but it's fun. And you don't even spend that much of the game in combat, so it's good. So yeah, moving on to our main topic here. Today's song is the opening song from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. This is the song that plays when you first start the game, and Link is riding through the forest on Epona and then falls off and apparently dies or something. Opinions vary.
Those are
That's a creepypasta and probably not real. If anything, he teleports to Termina when he goes through the little twisty hallway into the windmill. So,
yes.
So Steven, can I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Steven Skyped me this song this morning, and I've been spending all day listening to it and analyzing it. And to me, the first thing that stood out was...
Oh, well, probably I should be more specific here. I'm just going to like introduce what the song is, and then we'll give our analysis after we play it for everyone.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, just real quick. So before we jump into the song specifically, just what's our background with this game? We've had an episode on Majora's Mask before, but just a quick recap. Like, Cameron, what is your history with Majora's Mask?
Well,
he was walking through the forest and he found this dude sleeping on the ground.
And
so
I hit my head really
mask.
hard, and suddenly I had this awesome mask. No, so I bought it back. I got the 64 kind of late. I got it in about 2000 and must have been 2001.
Right.
So the PS2 was out, you know, and I got Ocarina of Time with the 64, and then I beat it, and then a couple months down the road, I begged to get Majora's Mask. We bought it off of eBay. I had the awesome gold holographic cartridge. And I played it, and immediately I knew something was weird about it. I realized that it was just completely different than Ocarina of Time. But I was a dumb kid, and I never did beat it, as a young kid. I beat the Snowhead Temple, Snowhead? No, Snow,
the Snow Temple.
That one. I beat that one, and then, because I was a dumb kid who didn't, was distracted by a butterfly or whatever, I stopped playing. But even at that small amount of time I played it, I knew that the game was just so different and weird. I could just I got the vibe from it, that it was just crazy different. And then, when it came out for no, it didn't come out for the GameCube. When did it? Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. It was in that collector's edition. When it came out for the GameCube, that's when I actually ended up beating it, and I must have been like 15 or 16 at that point, so, at least 5 years later. And I still don't think I definitely appreciated it more at that point, but I still don't think I really grasped my full appreciation for it until I played it on an emulator only about 2 years ago, and then I realized that, wow, this is such an awesome game, and to the date, it still stands as my favorite Zelda game.
I remember when you were playing through it, like, a couple of years ago, you just came to me and said, like, I think this is better than Ocarina of Time. And you were, like, coming to this crazy realization.
Well, it wasn't, I had always kind of thought it was better than Ocarina. I had come to the realization that it was better than Wind Waker.
Oh, okay.
And because Wind Waker was my all-time favorite Zelda game for years, just because, obviously, it's Wind Waker. But when I replayed it, I realized that it's such a break from tradition of Zelda. And granted, at that point, there wasn't a whole lot of tradition, but in hindsight, it's the most weird, out there Zelda game. They use, like, Chinese drums, and it's so cool. It's so cool. So I have so much appreciation for it, and it's absolutely my favorite Zelda game.
Steven.
Hello.
Hi.
We've already done introductions.
Well,
Steven.
see, I was walking through the forest, and
All right, so what is our background with Majora's Mask?
well, we did play Ocarina of Time first, as you should.
I do know that you sold a beautiful golden cartridge for no reason.
Yeah,
No, Cameron, there was a reason.
What?
money.
Okay, so that's a horrible reason. Thank you.
Okay, look. Once we had completed the game and realized it was on a virtual console, Bryan convinced me that we should sell the game. Because that was during a period where we were kind of trying to get rid of some of our
This is not the important part of our history
and
of
whatnot.
Majora's Mask.
It is too, because it brings to question your character.
That is true.
And so the comparison I sort of make with this is we were collectively the happy-ass salesmen, and by letting Majora's Mask exit our grasp, I think we put the world in danger.
You sure did. Way to go,
But
guys.
while we had the game, I think we were kind of like you, Cameron, in that we were maybe closer to your teenage self, because that was closer to how old we were. But we really, really liked the game. But I don't think I personally fully grasped how bizarre it was. I feel like I was still,
Let's be fair, I don't think any of us have still fully
no,
grasped
you're right. Very
how
few
bizarre it is.
people can fully grasp it. Let's just say I was green enough in the video game scene to not, really get what an insane departure it was. However, we played it enough and beat it to the point where we thought it was better than Ocarina of Time.
See,
Okay,
I
by the
didn't
time
actually
we-
know that. See, I totally thought you liked Ocarina better. That's interesting. Okay. Cool.
Well, then we put it down, and I had played Ocarina of Time, many more times than I have, Majora's Mask, and over the years, I've slid towards that camp again.
Interesting.
Until, to this day, I still think Wind Waker and, Ocarina of Time are better than Majora's Mask. However, playing it on the 3DS is going to give me my, my chance to let it redeem itself and see if it can surpass those other
Right,
two.
because we're all adults now, basically, and we can really, I think, appreciate the game in almost all of its senses much better than we were able to, even so little as 5 years ago.
Yeah, no, that I think you have a good point there. Especially just having played so many other games and watched other games get developed. Not just like the contents of this game, but the backstory of it is so interesting that it just makes everything more amplified.
Yeah, absolutely. So why, Steven, did you pick this particular song?
Well, first of all, this is kind of a weird episode of Train Station at 8 because we're recording really late, like at the last second. I'm gonna have to edit this in the morning, and we've kind of already done this episode before.
Yep.
In a way, we've had Cameron on the show talking about Majora's Mask.
Yes, we have.
So
It's like, is that all I'm good for, guys? Just talking about Majora's
Pretty
Mask?
much.
yes.
The only thing you know about.
And the last time we really spent a lot of our time focusing on the differences between Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's actually coming back to me now. That's right.
Of course.
Yeah. So I'm thinking maybe we'll focus on other things,
Sure.
this episode, or maybe we'll retread the same ground and see if we change our opinions having played it more recently. But anyway, the reason I chose this specific song, is because, first of all, it's one of the songs I've encountered in the 3DS version since I haven't had that much time to play it. You see, originally, I had planned to spend, about 20 minutes, transferring my old 3DS to my new 3DS, and then a few hours.
Whatever gave you the idea that was going to take 20 minutes? How did you come to that conclusion?
The guides looked really easy.
Oh, you fool.
Yeah, I've done this process too when I upgraded to XL, so yeah, it's not fun.
So instead, I spent 20 minutes playing the game and 3 hours to do the transfer.
Yeah.
But hey, it worked, and now
Good.
I'm finally in Termina. So
Awesome. So
the reason I chose the song
Yes,
is
the
because
reason you chose
it's
the
one
song.
of the songs I've encountered so far,
Uh-huh.
so I have fresh memory of it. And also, I think that it's a really telling musical piece that sets the tone for the entire game and sets the tone for the conversation I'd like to have.
It's a little
which is-
underappreciated. Like,
It
when,
kind
when
of
you
is.
think
It's
about
forgotten.
Majora's Mask songs, the first one that comes to mind is Song of Healing, which is probably one of the better songs, but this is the one that
Song of Healing is an amazing song, Cameron.
And of course, the Deku Palace and what's that? The Eloquy of what? You get my point. There's a lot of songs that get talked about a lot. This one really doesn't. Even though Steven's right, it has a huge impact because it's the first song you hear in the game.
Precisely. It's the first song you hear in the game, and it doesn't really do very much. It kind of, I mean, we'll hear it in just a moment, but it kind of hits, not literally, but it hits one note, and then changes at the very end, and it's like a minute long. But it's really powerful for putting you in the shoes of Link.
And on that one note, let's go ahead and play for everyone the opening from Majora's Mask. Okay, and on that rather creepy note, that was opening from The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, composed by one Koji Kondo. I don't know, that guy's
Man's a genius.
Not a big name in gaming, but I guess he's done a few okay tracks.
Like we said, we wanted to go for the underappreciated.
The obscure, yes.
But man,
exactly.
you can like smell that still misty forest and hear the clomping of Epona's horsey steps.
Right. That the Majora laugh is actually so ingrained in that scene that I hear his laugh every single time I hear that song, even if it's not there, which is not in the real song, obviously.
So this is the song that plays in that iconic opening cutscene, which I think is easy to forget how insane it is. Kind of disconnecting yourself from this being the sequel to Ocarina of Time. Because after all of those years, well, actually, hadn't been that many years.
Just a year.
No, it'd be like one.
It was 1 year. The entire
So after all
of those years,
Link comes back into the scene, and there's no epic opening, there's no, like, flying fairy montage, it's just the super still...
So, okay, here's something interesting, I noticed, to, get the Ocarina of Time comparisons out of the way here at the beginning, is the opening of this song is actually very similar to the slower parts of the fairy flying theme at their opening of Ocarina.
Actually, Brian, that's exactly the point I was going to hit on first and foremost. The first lovely violin part with a little bit of little sour notes in there, really is Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so as Link is clomping through the forest, you have this wonderful Ocarina of Time-esque melody, and then you get the little and then that horn goes and you get that creepy Chinese drum with the weird harp. I don't even know what kind of instrument. It's like a Chinese guitar or something. It's all based in Chinese, like, sounding sound effects. And it really brings you from, this is Ocarina, but things are gonna get weird. And it brings you into the Majora's Mask world so well because it slides you in with that creepy melody, and you immediately see Majora with his creepy mask, and you're like, oh, well, this is going to be interesting.
And I mean, this is obvious. It's something we talked a lot about in the last episode about Majora's Mask. But it just needs to be said at the beginning. All of these assets and all of these instruments come straight from the super familiar, super popular Ocarina of Time. And so some of the magic of this game simply appears by them using these familiar faces in strange, unsettling ways. And it almost kind of lulls you into a false sense of security at the very beginning. And then soon you start to realize something weird is going down.
Well, that's an interesting point too, is that as we said, using like previous assets, the beginning of the song is all played with the same like instruments from Ocarina of Time, like the same sound chip, everything is exactly the same.
In Ocarina of Time, it absolutely could have been.
And then they start introducing all the elements they experimented with in Majora's Mask, like with the drum and the horns and all of the things that are more signature for Majora's Mask come in there and kind of welcome you to this new world of music.
So let's talk about Majora's Mask and the music that goes along with it for a second. It's obvious that the whole mask thing, pardon me, is very is kind of rooted in this like tribal almost kind of voodoo sort of sensation. And I think it's really important that they were able to establish that musically and be able to use that through the entire game. So there's this cue, and you know whenever that mask is looking at you, whenever you hear that specific instrument, that thing is staring at you, and there's something wrong with it.
It's the combination of the music with that creepy harp and that creepy guitar with, like, the first scene you see that's different is the mask looking right at you, like you said, and its head twists and turns and it cracks, and then he laughs all evilly, and it really does a good job of just completely showing you exactly what this game is going to be about.
Right, and the game is about a much more unknown and much more disturbing foe than just Ganondorf.
Right.
You know?
They really went for an enemy. I kind of compare him to the Joker in a sense, and I kind of compare him to Christopher Nolan's Joker more so than the Mark Hamill's Joker, in the way that Ganondorf wanted power, What's-His-Face from Twilight Princess wanted power, Majora just wants to, quote-unquote, watch the world burn. He just wants to have horrible, disturbing fun. And that's a really cool villain. And the way that they organize the music, in a sense, the music is almost, like, broken, or it's, like, not proper. I can't describe exactly what I'm trying to get across, but there's something tweaked about all the music in this game, and that completely works well with the way that Majora as a character works.
I mean, I think the music brings in stuff that's often more heard in horror types music, which is bringing discordant things in, things that are not pleasant to hear, melodies that don't work, rhythms that don't flow.
You got it, yeah.
Yeah, so they use things that are not pleasant to hear and don't sound right and don't sound harmonious, and that is how they get across this idea of wrongness. And yeah, it's something that's more often used in horror. And
that's
I find
that's a very good point, and something that I was kind of surprised to find when I was playing through the game again. I kind of set my 3DS down for a second and said to myself, this is a Zelda horror game.
Yeah.
It's the closest we're ever going to get to in my opinion, a very adult-themed, horror-based Zelda game. You're exactly right.
I mean, there are numerous characters and situations in this game that are built to just be disturbing. Like, that's what their purpose is.
It's so effective at that is, in my opinion, the scariest thing you can do is take something normal and familiar and then turn it into something unfamiliar and, disturbing.
What is that? And Steven, you know what? I think I brought up this exact point in the last time we talked about Majora's Mask. Stephen King wrote, the scariest thing you can possibly do to anybody is go into someone's house and turn all of their items, 2 degrees to the left or to the right. That's the difference between horror and, frightening, being terrified. Horror would be like a dead body in the house, and, there's a dead body, oh my gosh. That terrifying feeling is where everything looks exactly the same, except it's just a little teeny bit off.
Right, and Majora's Mask, it capitalizes on this fully because it uses all of the old assets and then turns them that little bit off.
And here's one of the beautiful things that it does, and this is, they did this musically as well. In the beginning, like we were saying, the instruments, it sounds like it's an Ocarina of Time song. You sound like you're in familiar old Hyrule. And before you know it, you jump down the rabbit hole, and you're in Termina, and everything's weird, and you get completely caught up in this adventure where you're a Deku scrub, and the moon is crashing into the earth, and who are these strange people? And then there's a moment where you relearn, the Song of Time. And you have a vision. You look, it is. And you look back in the past, and Link remembers when Princess Zelda taught him that. And it's this moment of relief to let go of a breath I hadn't realized I had been holding on the first 3 days.
But the interesting thing is, they take that though. They take, you have this wonderful, cloud scene where you're standing in the clouds with Princess Zelda and Zelda's Lullaby is playing, and then you're back into the world, but you still have the Song of Time to go back to. You're still thinking, okay, the Song of Time is the song that I can hold on to in this crazy world of its But then you have the double Song of Time and the inverted Song of Time, and that just messes everything up. Because you think about it and you're like, this one place I could go to where nothing is horrible is now creepy and twisted too, because the inverted Song of Time is creepy. Just like the rest of the music in the game. And so they used the Song of Time, and that was one of the coolest mechanics. Even the first time I played Majora's Mask as a kid, the way that you reuse the Song of Time was an awesome idea. It was insanely a good idea.
And it's the old turn everything a few degrees the opposite way you're expecting, because it's just playing the familiar songs backwards.
Yep, exactly right.
Oh, it's messed up, man. It's messed up.
I don't think people realize exactly how twisted and turned this game is. Everyone's always like, oh, Majora's Mask is so creepy. Majora's Mask is so horrible. It really is a twisted trip into some crazy world, and I think it makes it even better because we played Ocarina of Time, where things were just a normal fantasy world, and taking bits and pieces of music from here and there and putting it into Majora's Mask, but messing it up. Just all these little things they did, including with the music. I'm trying to relate it back to music and not just gush about Majora's Mask. Just really pumped out this world that was just so dark and twisted, and it would fit into a horror novel or anything like that so well.
I think what makes Majora's Mask so effective at that, though, is, at least for me, I never thought it was, marketed as that. I never felt like it was trying to bill itself as, this is going to be the scariest game you've ever played.
Well, it's not really Nintendo's forte. I don't think that advertising it as a creepy, adult-themed Zelda game would have worked. Because people would have been like, most of the kids probably wouldn't have been able to play it. I know my parents actually had some reservations about letting me play it, because my dad read up on some stuff about it, and he was like, this looks pretty creepy, and blah, blah, blah. So if they had built it like that, built it as creepy as it is, I'm not sure people would have played it as much. Not that they played it a lot anyways.
I think that's part of what adds to the mystique of it, is it's a lot more scary to find out there are disturbing undertones to a thing that should supposedly be normal than be told you're going to be scared and then say, I'm not going to be scared.
And that's a really important point, musically and everything elsely about Majora's Mask. It doesn't feel like it's trying too hard, and it doesn't feel like it's trying to take something innocent and then making it creepy to be, shocking or cool or something. It feels like this really genuine, creative, so crazy it just might work. I can't believe they're letting us make this. I can't believe they're letting us make this kind of moment.
Well, I think it really relies on the user as well, because, so imagine for a second that you hadn't played Ocarina of Time. Obviously the game would still have a good impact of being creepy, but would it have had as much of an impact on you if you hadn't have known what the Song of Time was, and if you hadn't seen all these characters and music pulled straight from Ocarina of Time? So I think they relied on the user's knowledge of previous Zelda games and previous experiences, and because of that, they were able to grab those memories out of our brain and just twist them into knots and turn it into something creepy, and I don't think it would have had that kind of impact if we hadn't played previous Zelda games. Still would have been creepy, but not
Yeah.
as.
So here's a little question, and this isn't very musically related. I'm sorry, folks, but honestly, if I'm being brutally honest with the world, I only chose this song because I really wanted it to be an introduction to us talking about Majora's Mask for a while, because I really like talking about Majora's Mask. But what do you guys think the moon is all about? Because I was starting to think about that today. And the moon has a face, right? I'm pretty sure it has a face. And it looks real...
No, I don't think so.
No, wait. It does. I'm looking at the cover art
sure?
right now. Absolutely. I can count
Okay.
Are you sure they
I
didn't
guess
add
you
that
can-
just in the
I-
3D version?
Oh,
I
geez,
guess
you're
you
right.
can kind of read that into it.
Actually, would that not be terrifying if you had the 3D slider off and there's no face, and as you turn it on, a face
Oh my
appears?
god. They missed out.
So, to touch on the obvious. The
Well, I
moon
had a
is-
specific.
Oh, go ahead.
I had a specific question
Yeah.
to ask though.
Go ahead.
Has the moon always had a face in this world?
No.
Hmm.
No, I don't believe so. I think when Majora got this evil twisted power, he took the moon as his own, and that was like, like I said earlier, he's just kind of having fun watching the world just be destroyed. So he was like, the moon. Turn the moon evil, because in the later part of the game, that's his, like, home. That's his home base. And we don't know much about Majora, or the Skull Kid in general, but he turns the inside of the moon into, like, his comfort zone. But then he also turns it into 4 different trials that Link has to go to. So he's taken the moon and made it become his home, almost. And so I think it would, in his mind, if I'm putting myself in his eyes, this would be so hilarious if I made this moon look have a horrible face that's crushing all of the people in this town. Wouldn't that be great? That makes sense to me.
That
personally.
that seems like something he would do. But as I was listening to the villagers, and I'm very early on in the game. I haven't played the full thing in years. But as I was listening to everyone talk about the moon, they were concerned that it was big. They were concerned that it was going to crush them. But no one seemed put out about the face.
That's what I
So
thought
there's
too.
there's two possibilities for that. One is it's just a video game and they didn't program it in there. Or you're right, this moon had a face. And it's always had a face. But then you have to question, why in the world did this moon have a face? In the first place. So has this moon...
And if it has a...
Go ahead.
If it has a face, does it have a personality? Is it like a person? And is he really bummed out about his face being smashed into
He did cry.
He's crying all the time. That's a good point.
And yeah, the moon tears are something that the guy in the observatory is like, hey, go look in them thing. You might see a moon tear. So obviously, the moon tears are something that's common in this world. So that's a really, really good point. It's had eyes. At least it's had eyes for who knows how long.
And see, the interesting thing I find about Majora's Mask is that this sort of conversation would usually be silly in a Zelda game, because it's like you're just picking apart, like, I don't know, the Gorons eat rocks.
Are the hills in Mario World actually alive?
Or do they... I definitely have seen them blink. But Majora's Mask is just so stuffed with odd symbolism and metaphors, and it's just weird enough to be worth it, It's like, surely a lot of the stuff in this game means something to someone. And so I like trying to figure out what that is.
So...
Yeah, I think...
The original thing I was going to say was, in terms of gameplay reasoning, why the moon has a face, is this impending sense of doom. So, I am at the Snow Peak world right now, and there's the part where the Goron is blowing winds through the platform right before you get into the temple, and you make him fall asleep, and I was running up the hill, and I turned just the right way where that stupid moon was right in my face, and I was like, yeah, the moon is right there. And so, it's just this, because you can see it everywhere you are in the entire game.
Yeah.
Except for, like, inside, obviously, duh. But it's this crazy sense of looming doom that you're gonna die unless you play that Song of Time or you stop Majora. Those are your two options. And it's there.
It is.
And it's following you.
It's literally mortality staring you in the face.
Literally.
That's...
It's literally you staring mortality.
Why is this
in the
game
face.
rated E10?
Because 10-year-olds need to know they're gonna die,
I
darn it.
guess so.
Yeah, I don't know, like, it seems like we go down so many rabbit holes about the metaphors of this game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to say what it all is for, if it's for any one thing, or, I don't know.
Why don't we
it feels like it's too...
Why don't we discuss something a little different about Majora's Mask? And I think, we
Sure.
honestly might have discussed it previously, but I can't remember. The negative part of the music. Because we all know there's actually bad music in this game.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, why in the world do you think that things like... Okay, first of all, the majority of the Ocarina songs are pretty crummy.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time had, 10 songs? Maybe 12 songs? I can't remember exactly how many.
Mm-hmm.
No, more than that, because there was the teleporting songs, and yeah, there was crazy amounts of songs, and they were all good. They all had a wonderful story behind them, and they were all really exciting. Things like the Goron Lullaby, and the teleporty one, I can't remember the names of them, I should get my 3DS. They're just not good. They're very they have no rhythm. The music that follows after them is very generic and boring and empty almost, like some of them barely have any melody at all afterwards. So what do you think was this game that was so full of creepy, soulful music? What happened with the Ocarina songs?
Well, all I can think is that the major themes of the game were focused on first, and that's a very good thing. The Song of Healing, etc., the Clock Town song, all the stuff that needs to be really special. There's a lot of music that maybe isn't fun to listen to, but is effective in the kind of horror fashion that Bryan was describing earlier. And I guess the rest of it sort of fell through the cracks because either Koji Kondo just ran out of material, was busy, or was just overtaxed and tired from his work on Ocarina of Time.
So you don't think that there is a specific, reason that this music is not as good? Or I guess you did give one reason that it could be, because it fits a horror theme. But, could there be a overarching reason that the melodies for the Ocarina are poorly composed?
I think one reason might be that the reason the melodies worked so well in Ocarina of Time is they were so beautiful, and they were so simple, and they were so pleasing to listen to that made, a 5 or 6 note melody work. I think maybe what could have happened to Majora's Mask is they're like, well, we need to make this more complex. We need to not make it pleasing to hear. Mm-hmm. We need to make it interesting and off. And when you have to do that for an 8 note sparse melody, it may be just too much, biting too off more than you can chew.
They could have used the obviously the game was made 20 years ago. They absolutely could have used the ability to change the key of the notes, because you can slide the analog stick up and down while you're playing the notes, and it makes noises. They could have expanded on it, but you're right. That's a really good point. If the issue was indeed development time, that makes perfect sense. If it wasn't development time and there was a reason behind this, it also sort of makes sense to think that the reason they were poorly sounding is to make it poorly sounding, because this world is so weird anyways.
But I just don't think it comes across as well when you do it in a melody-driven song that's also very simple. Then it's just going to sound like a bad melody.
Well, the thing is, a poor-sounding melody is so subjective that you can't just say, yes, these were bad songs. Okay, maybe some of them are actually objective. But,
they're not great.
But you think of, the Song of Storms, and that was creepy and weird, and totally would have fit this game.
That is
but
very
also
true.
very melodic and very memorable.
It's actually in the game.
Right. But I mean...
I know what you mean.
They could have made more like that.
Right. So maybe the excuse that they didn't have the ability to create creepy music in the 8-note space doesn't quite hold up, but the thought that they didn't have the time still does. Of course, we're just speculating, so I'm not sure if there's any more reason to speculate specifically, though.
It's an interesting question, though, because it is a very stark contrast.
It is, yeah.
The music... around a lot of the other game songs can be compared to Ocarina of Time somewhat favorably, like it's a different style, but it feels like for the Ocarina songs, what I remember them at least, they're just very underwhelming compared to what you're getting from Ocarina of Time.
I don't know. I specifically remember as a kid disliking some of the Ocarina songs. I would be like, why is this song just not as good? It's just, even as a little kid, I totally I don't like these songs as much. They're just not as good. So it's really interesting to think about. I'd be really, it's obviously impossible and it will never happen, but I'd be really curious to pick the developer's brain about Majora's Mask in general, I think. That would be so much fun to really dig deep and be like, why in the world Tingle? Why in the world?
Oh my
Actually,
gosh.
they explained Tingle.
This was the game that made Tingle, wasn't it?
They explained Tingle.
That explains a lot.
Are you guys aware that Tingle's father was in this game?
Who is Tingle's father?
What?
Remember the big hairy-chested guy at the boat tour?
Him?
Oh, right.
There's a little picture frame next to him that shows him and a tiny little Tingle holding a balloon.
Oh, you are so right. You're really right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Weird.
I didn't remember that. I think I remember remembering that. But that's crazy.
In the game, Tingle mentions his father, like, giving him a hard time for wanting to be a fairy and stuff.
That I remember.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
did you actually, Kotaku got an interview with one of the developers in Majora's Mask.
Tingle?
No, with Majora's developers.
Oh.
And they explained Tingle. Did you guys read that?
No, what?
So
Do explain Tingle.
The idea was that they wanted maps in this game and the ability to purchase maps, but they wanted to give it some personality. And so they created this guy who would walk around the world and he would sell you maps. But then they thought, well, it'd be kind of fun to add a little more character to him, so let's have him fly around to, he's up in the air, he can map out the territories. And then this is how their mindset went. Well, anybody who flies around with a balloon selling maps has to be weird, right? right? So let's make him really weird. That's exactly how it went. Literally.
And see,
that's the kind of thought process that leads to Majora's Mask.
And then we're gonna be like, oh, we had all of these, like, deep, like, metaphorical
Tingle
ideas.
is actually a metaphor for lost childhood and innocence and the inability to move past it. And they're like, nope, we just wanted to make a weird guy on a balloon.
The exact phrasing was, well, this kind of person has to be weird, so let's make him weird. I thought that was really entertaining that they were able to describe Tingle that way.
All of the Ocarina songs really just came out because Koji Kondo is banging on the keyboard drunk at 3 a.m.
Or he's having a deaf
like,
composer compose it for him.
Oh no. That so explains the Resident Evil song, though.
Super does.
The beauty of art, though.
That was like the one song where he's like, I'll compose one my own this time. And it's like, okay, maybe you should go back to, being a ghostwriter, because that didn't go very well. What were you saying, Steven?
Oh, I was just going to tell you what the beauty of art was, but no biggie.
All right, I think we're running out of time to go over that,
Can we just discuss one
Steven.
more song really fast, in particular? Let me pull it up, and Steven, if you want to play it, I'll introduce it, and then you can play it. If I can find it. I think this is it. Hang on, I gotta play it, make sure it's the right one. That is not it. This is it. Maybe.
While Cameron looks, I'll entertain everyone by doing my Tingle impression.
I got it. So, the Stone Tower Temple, temple is a very weirdly designed temple in general. So what happens is you go and it's like, oh, it's a normal temple, I'm going through the rooms. And then about halfway through, all of a sudden, literally the entire temple turns upside down. Literally, that's what happens. And so, they took that song that played in the original version of the temple, and they just made it weirder for the inverted version. So, without further ado, this is Stone Tower Temple Inverted. Immediately, the first thing I notice about this song is the sound effect, and that makes you guys know what sound.
It basically sounds like a spirit laughing.
And it really hits. It kind of sounds like something playing in reverse, which is the whole point of the temple.
That
is that everything got turned upside down and reversed, and
everything. Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Everything in this game to me has like you're going to a Chinese circus at nighttime and no one's there.
Ooh, that's a good analogy.
That's what so much of this game feels like. I think it's exemplified a lot in that dancer that goes out at night.
The twins.
Yeah, like there's very much like a festival vibe to the game, but a festival that you go to and you really, really don't want to be there.
And you die at the end.
And there's nothing fun.
Well,
I mean, you just kind of want to leave.
And then you die,
Cameron.
And then you die.
Yeah.
But I was just experiencing that tonight playing it when the third day and almost everyone is gone, but all of the festival, decorations are still up. And it's just the dark, like the mayor, like being caught in between the military saying we need to evacuate now and the workmen corporation being like, no, are you kidding? We have to stick around. This is our duty. You guys are cowards. And it was this weird, odd realism almost of like, it's too serious for
setting it during a celebration was a very interesting idea.
Yeah, but like kind of what I was getting at is it's almost too serious of a conversation for Zelda characters to have. It's like this is real. There's a disaster coming for this place, and just some people won't leave. It's scary.
Am I right in assuming that this is probably the best, but the only Zelda game that we really cared about the story at all?
Oh no, I actually really like the story.
Maybe in Wind Waker, excuse me. Wind Waker is the exception, but like, in Ocarina of Time, the story was just there to move you along to different temples.
Maybe the best way to put it would be, it's the only story I want to discuss.
There you go.
I liked Ocarina of Time story. I loved the characters, I loved the places, I even liked the things that happened, but I wouldn't sit there and say, so guys, why do you think Ganon did that? It's like, 'cause he's evil, that's why he did it.
Right, and see, for me, the only thing that was really interesting about the story of Ocarina of Time was possibly that one scene where, the evil demons come out of the well in Korea Village, which, by the way, is kinda like Majora's Mask, that entire scene, because it grabs Sheik and it like flops him around and smacks him into the ground, and all the buildings are on fire. So that was the only part really in Ocarina of Time that I thought.
I noticed that was all the lead up to the horror dungeon.
Right. So maybe that was inspiration for Majora's Mask.
Yeah,
for shadow templing. Yeah, see what I did there.
Well, speaking of foreshadow templing,
I wanted to discuss this actual song a little bit. I thought that it was interesting because it's more melodic than most Zelda temples.
Yeah, see, that was what my point was going to be, I think, about the whole song in general, is that it's one of the only songs that I think would be like, I don't know how to phrase this without making the rest of the soundtrack sound bad, but it's like the only one that could be a real song. That doesn't make any sense.
I mean, you have Clock Town and stuff.
That doesn't make any sense. See, I can't exactly explain how I'm trying to describe this song. Like like there's a chorus and a bridge, and a chorus and a bridge, and a verse, and it just feels like
has multiple
song.
parts.
And when the ocarina comes in by itself, it's just so creepy, and it makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, and I really can't describe exactly what I'm talking about, so maybe I'll just shut up and let someone else talk.
I think I get part of what you're saying, but it is, we took on a hard task here because Majora's Mask is not an easily explicable game. That's like the fun about it is that it isn't explicable. So we're trying our best here to make words about it.
Words.
It's kind of a futile task.
Well, I mean, this is a late night podcast. It's like I said, it's the last second. I'm fresh off playing Majora's Mask. So
I'm fresh off like 7 hours of Dragon Age, so I'm so zoned out right now.
So it's going to be a weird episode. We'll see if it's good at all, but mostly it's just here for us to have a bit of a platform to talk about this crazy game.
Yeah, something I really enjoy is how it's not even really the melody, but the backing, that na na na, is dueled between the instrument and that creepy, unnaturally high vocalist. Does a really good job of portraying the creepy, like, this is the temple that takes place with like all those kind of ghosts and
Well,
monsters
yeah,
in
the
the
main
valley,
story,
right?
it's like Icaragua Valley or something like that, and it's
a
the whole
Valley of Spirits,
the whole
right?
point of this entire place was that everyone's dead. Everyone
Yes.
is dead, and their ghosts are haunting the area. That's the story of this creepy, freaking area, and the music amplifies it perfectly. And as a matter of fact, if we
I mean,
had
the music
time,
literally...
I would show you one more song.
Right, like the music literally pulls in elements of singing ghosts and
Actually, you know what?
spirits.
I'm going to go ahead. This is going to be one of the last things we talk about. I want you to go ahead and Steven and edit this in. This is Ikana Valley from Majora's Mask.
That's a good song to listen to for you to sleep.
Right, I know. I'm staying up for a little while longer, I think.
Does anyone else feel like the low piano hits, those dun, 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 is a musical representation of something horrible knocking at your door?
Yes.
Did anyone else hear someone
Steven.
like a human, like, coughing at the beginning? It was like this weird coughing sound that wasn't even, like, musical.
Are you sure that wasn't just...
Steven, you hit on
yes?
the most amazing point I have ever heard. You said the piano notes were like the knocking on a door. Do you know what the story is in that area? It's...
Everyone's dead?
It's... Well, okay, I already hit that. It's a little kid's dad disappeared, and the little kid is trapped in the house surrounded by zombies.
No!
And you go into the house, and he won't open the door because there's zombies outside. And when you finally get in, he's freaked out about the zombies and the evil spirits outside. You cannot believe you pinpointed that so perfectly. That's an amazing point. Wow. Oh my god, that's
that
so
was an
creepy.
amazing point from me.
Jeez, that's...
Well done, Steven. You get the amazing point.
Thanks, man.
But yeah, I can swear at 7 seconds there's like someone sneezing,
gonna listen to
and
it
it's
again.
so creepy. Because it's such a human sound that isn't even musical.
Hang on, let's do it. Hang on.
To me, it sounds like a distant, like, scream.
Hang on, I actually can't pinpoint it. 1 sec.
Sounds like sneezing in the right channel.
Is it right at 6 seconds? Okay, hang on. It just sounds like strings.
Okay, I
to
hear
me,
someone
it sounds like
sneezing, but I could
strings
be completely
mimicking
insane.
a distant scream.
Okay,
but,
that I could agree with. Yeah, whatever it is, it's creepy.
Yeah, it's really creepy. This whole game's creepy. It's really creepy. That is the extent of my discussion on this game.
All right, we summed it up, folks. Majora's Mask is a creepy game.
But no, these are all fantastic points and fantastic songs that each of these songs could really get their own episode. Majora's Mask is one of the most fascinating games to talk about and think about and play. And I'm really excited whenever Steven's done with his copy so I can steal it and play it. To go through this game again while actually caring about music and narrative and stuff in games other than like, wow, this mask looks funny.
It really is a weird masterpiece. Like, there's nothing that's ever been like it since or before. And it's because of the weirdness of it and because it's just so unique, it's almost timeless. And this update 3D version that they released fixed all the weird issues that the game might have had in the first place. And because of that, it's just a masterpiece of a game. It's absolutely a masterpiece.
It's now kind of an unobstructed gem. And all those reasons and excuses you had to not play it before have been removed.
Right. All the main complaint about the game was the dungeons weren't very fun. Well, first of all, the dungeons aren't really even the meat of the game. And second of all, they fixed it. And so now what we're left with is this masterfully crafted, weird, fun, scary, creepy game that we will probably never see anything like ever again.
Yeah. And all that strange, unsettling, thought-provoking stuff that we just heard was all kicked off with those opening strings, and with Link in the Forest that remind you of Ocarina of Time. And it just seems like such a distant time ago. And just to think back to, like, the Goron City and Hyrule Fields and meeting Kapora Gabora the Owl and all those normal Zelda things just seemed like a world away.
And Steven, I would like you to end this episode on the end credits from the game, the song, obviously, because I believe that it really sums up the game in general, because after everything is saved and you've saved all the people and you've completed all the tasks for all the people who are needing Link's help, it's the one song that doesn't have a dark undertone at all. Except towards the middle where they show a little bit of a cutscene with the Skull Kid, but even then, it's a happy, sad sound instead of a creepy, sad sound. So, go ahead and end on that. It's a wonderful ending to a game that is just so amazing.
It's interesting that the game opens and ends with lacking the characteristic wrongness seen throughout the entire rest of it.
That was intentional.
Yeah. It was an experience. It's probably one of the most original soundtracks Nintendo's ever put out. It's really interesting that Koji Kondo did something so outside his comfort zone. So many of his soundtracks are going to be upbeat and are going to be catchy and are going to be melodic. It's the idea that he basically got to experiment with a atonal horror soundtrack working in the world of Zelda for a project like this was something really special and something, like you said, we might not get to see a composer like him doing for a very long time.
I can't imagine that the new Zelda is going to have any elements from Majora's Mask in general. If it does, that's ridiculously wonderful, but I seriously doubt it. So we just need to savor Majora's Mask for as long as we possibly can.
Exactly, this podcast.
Like this podcast.
So next week, we're going to spend the episode talking about the Happy Mask Salesman. Who is he? Where did he come from?
We're just going to start a podcast
How does he teleport?
all about Majora's Mask speculation.
I'm good with that. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah. All right.
Called Majora's Cast.
Wow. I was trying to think of a name faster than you, and you came up with a wonderful one immediately. So I just don't even... Whatever.
Hey, I am on point, man. Speaking of being on point, that'll about wrap up our episode tonight. That was fun. I think, being dazed at, 1 a.m. is probably the only right way to talk about Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask.
The only right way. The developers would be proud.
I'm sure that's how they developed it.
Probably.
Exactly.
With only a year to make it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably half the time was them, basically sleep deprived. Basically hallucinating through most of the development of that game, which explains the final boss. Oh, that was so creepy. Oh, even when I was young, I knew something was wrong when I faced that guy.
Yeah, even the first temple. Okay, whatever. End the podcast.
Yeah.
All right. So, Twitter, people. We're on Twitter.
You can find me, Stephen Kelly 180 on Twitter. You can find Bryan as Lord Meldor on Twitter, and Cameron as Dell 90 Watt AC. Is that still what it is?
Still got it. Yep. I don't tweet much, but if you want to follow me, I do retweet things. So yeah.
And there's also the show Train Station itself, which is just Train Station 8.
Yes, our email is trainstation8@gmail.com. If you want to, email us.
You want me to take on this?
I got it. I'm professional. Shut up. Our YouTube is Train Station at 8. Search that on YouTube. You'll totally find us on YouTube. We are also part of the Wales Are Wales production network, where other awesome shows like this have other awesome people like us. So check that out at walesarawales.com.
And if you'd like to hear more from Cameron Nutter in the future, you'll be excited to see a new show we're going to launch soon if nothing goes terribly wrong.
Yeah, Majora's Cast. It's going to be great.
Sunday, tune in to see Majora's Cast, where we discuss the mask design for 5 hours.
One of the masks, I should hope.
We're going to start recording that right now.
The pig mask, not Majora's Mask, just the pig mask.
The thing I love about the pig mask is how strikingly it resembles a pig.
So something else interesting is we are now on Stitcher. If you are listening to us somewhere and want to listen to us somewhere else,
Stitcher.
We're on Stitcher now.
What the heck is Stitcher?
That's a good question, Cameron. Stitcher is the leading sort thing. I don't have my press release in front of me, but Stitcher is basically a place that collects and puts out podcasts that like Android users and stuff can go to if they don't want to use iTunes.
But not iPhone.
I mean, you can do it with iPhone as well. I just mean you probably.
Bryan.
I think you can use it with iPhone or computer or anything.
Okay.
It's just typically iPhone people have iTunes, so I'm not really concerned about them. But yeah, it's just an alternative to that. It seems like a really good program, and we recently submitted and got our podcast up on there.
Very
so
cool.
Check it out, everyone. It's a good podcast place that people go for podcasts. And on that note, we are going to end this show. Cameron, thank you very much for coming. This was very much fun.
I was very happy to come on and talk about one of my favorite games of all time, so thank you, gentlemen, very much for having me.
Absolutely. I suppose in about 8 or 9 more months, we had to have another Majora's Mask episode.
You guys
and
can
will
have
be
me
back
on the show whenever you want. You guys are in charge of that.
Yes. I know. We're going to have you on sooner, and it's going to be about something that's not Majora's
I'm
Mask.
totally good with that. I'm serious. We can talk about Skyrim again if you want.
Oh, no.
I told you I was closed-minded. I would come in with an opener mind this time.
All right. Bastion is always, that's always one that you've got a lot of passion for. So we'll see. I'm sure we're going to have lots of song ideas. Steven?
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome indeed.
Yes, and thank me for coming.
Thank you.
Because I almost didn't. So yeah, everyone, you all have an awesome week. And do we have a goodbye phrase for this podcast at this point, Steven?
Guys, it's 42 episodes in.
Well,
we used to have one that confused
we
people.
changed it.
You can make it the
No.
choo-choo.
All right.
Okay, good. That'll be great in editing. Thanks, Cameron.
Yeah, that's just going to be that.
I hope we come across as a train leaving the station. Can I stop recording?